What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we are talking about one of my all-time favorite kitchen tools, which are knives. Knives are literally so important when it comes to cooking and prepping and literally all the things that we do in the kitchen. So today I thought I'd talk to you a little bit more about knives, meaning what kind of knives should you have at home, what kind of knives are the best if you have a limited budget and don't have a lot to spend. And also, once you invest in a knife, it's really important to take care of them so that way they can last for years and years. So of course, we're also going to be chatting about knife care and how to keep your knives in good quality condition. Plus, we'll dig more into what you need to look for when buying knives so that way no matter where you purchase your knives, you'll know if the ones that you are buying are high quality. You can basically think of this video as your Knife 101 guide, so let's get into it and learn all about kitchen knives. So whether you are just getting into cooking or you're an experienced home chef, your kitchen knives are always going to be your number one tool. They can literally do 90% of the things that you need to do in the kitchen. They can prep and chop your produce, they can cut through meat and fish, and basically they're gonna help you get all of the important tasks done when you're prepping. So before we get to talking about what kind of knives you need in your kitchen, let's first chat a little bit more about high quality knives. There are certain characteristics that your knives will have that will make them more high quality. These are kind of the generally accepted principles or ideas of what high quality knives are. The most important thing, as you may have guessed, in a knife is going to be the blade. The blade is what is doing all of the hard work, so of course you have to put some focus there. The blade in a high quality knife should be forged and tempered to give it strength and durability. In terms of the type of metal, generally high carbon stainless steel is considered the best. This is because it doesn't corrode or discolor, and it can easily be sharpened. Another piece that you'll want to pay attention to is the tang. And the tang is the piece of the blade that runs along the knife and to the handle. Generally, experts suggest that a full tang is best and provides the most support and balance in your knife. However, nowadays, a half tang or a rat tail tang, depending on the knife, can still be good. So just kind of keep that in the back of your mind, but know that if you don't buy a full tang blade, it's still okay. And obviously the last piece of the knife is the handle. So you're gonna want to have a handle that is comfortable in your particular hand. You want it to be soft and smooth, and make sure that it doesn't have any openings so that way food or bacteria doesn't get in there and grow. And then finally, you'll want to pick up a knife and just see that it has a nice weight and feel to it. Obviously, knives are very personal, so you're gonna have to feel it to see what feels right for you when you're using it in the kitchen. So now that you know what to look for in a knife, it's time to talk about what knives you need in your kitchen. Now, you can easily do a Google search and come up with all different kinds of knife sets that have 20 plus knives. But trust me, you are never gonna use all of those knives, and honestly, it's just a waste of money. Usually those knife sets are more expensive, but you're getting less quality knives because they're giving you more knives because that's what they think that you want. But really, all you need are a few good solid knives. I have been cooking for years, and 90% of the time I use one knife, and the rest of the time I use a handful of knives, but never the 20 in the set that they're trying to sell you. So I've broken the knives that you need into two categories. The first category is your non-negotiable knives. These are knives that pretty much everybody needs to have in their kitchen. And then the other set are your extra or bonus knives. And these kind of depend on what you personally do in the kitchen and what cooking projects you prefer. So let's get into those non-negotiable knives. First up, we have our chef's knife, also commonly referred to as a French knife. This is the knife that I personally use 90% of the time. It's just like the classic knife that you can always pull out, and it's good for almost any project. The chef's knife can vary in length. The blade can be anywhere from like 8 to 14 inches, just depending on your preference. And this blade is angled a little bit so that way you can rock it back and forth on your cutting board as you chop. If you're on a budget and can only afford one high quality knife, I would definitely suggest that it will be your chef's knife. I will link my favorite chef's knife below in the description, This knife is under $40. It's from Mercer Culinary, and it has literally all of the high quality materials and products that we talked about earlier. It's a great value, especially for a price tag of under $40, and it will really do most of the jobs that you need to get done in the kitchen. All right, the next non-negotiable knife is a serrated knife. And this is a knife that has a long blade with sharp serrated teeth. It's used mainly to cut breads and pastries, things that you need to saw through so they don't get smashed or broken. So if you're a baker, you definitely need this knife because like I mentioned, you can cut so many different baked goods and cakes with this knife, and it's really just a good one to have on hand. And finally, our last non-negotiable knife is a paring knife. This is a smaller knife. The blade is only around 2 to 4 inches and it's made for detailed work in the kitchen. This knife is great for things like deveining shrimp or prawns. You can peel fruits and vegetables or de-seed fruits, and you can even use it to cut vents on top of a pie crust. It's a nice knife that gives you lots of control. So these are all my non-negotiable knives. I think they're gonna be really useful for you to have in your kitchen, and you're gonna find lots of good things to do with them. If you were to buy all 3 of these knives, they would come in just around $80. I'll leave the links that you can purchase them on Amazon below, but it's really a pretty affordable option, especially when you're talking about knives that are gonna last you years and years and years if you properly take care of them. So let's move along to our bonus section of knives. These knives are by no means necessary. It's really up to you and what you do in the kitchen to determine if it's worth purchasing this knife or having it in your collection. So the first knife to consider is a bone knife. This is a knife that has a thin blade that's flexible or rigid depending on the type of knife you buy, and it's used to cut around the bones of meat. This is gonna be super helpful if you like to fillet fish or you eat a lot of pork or beef that you need to cut off of some kind of bone. I also personally like to use my boning knife for breaking down a chicken or even cutting the skin off of a pineapple. It does come in handy for different projects like that. Next up, we have a utility knife. This is a knife that's a little bit smaller than your chef's knife. The blade is usually 6 to 8 inches long and it's narrower than a chef's knife. This is, as the name implies, a utility knife, so you can use it for various things in the kitchen. I tend to use a utility knife for things like cutting mid-sized fruits and vegetables, carving, or projects like that it's just an all-around good knife to have on hand. And finally, the last knife in the bonus section is a nikiri vegetable knife. This is a Japanese style knife that has a tall, straight blade. It's used mainly for up and down cuts since you can't easily rock it back and forth like a chef's knife. You may consider adding this knife to your collection if you eat a lot of produce or need to make a lot of thin, nicely even cuts in your produce. If you make a lot of sushi or make a lot of stock and need to chop lots and lots of onions or celery, produce like that, this could be a knife for you. Now, I will link all these knives that I've been talking about below. They are all from Mercer Culinary, and I think you're really gonna be shocked at the price of them. Now, if you've decided that you want multiple of these knives, maybe consider buying a set. And this is a set that has about 6 knives in it. So it's not one of those 20+ knife sets that's gonna get you all these knives that are just gonna be laying around your kitchen. The Mercer Culinary knife set is actually under $200. It's about $160, and it's gonna get you a lot of these high quality knives that we've been talking about in this section. It's really just up to you to decide what your needs are in the kitchen and what knives you're gonna get the most use out of. If you're still on the fence, again, I would go with your chef's knife and build up your collection from there. No matter what knives you decide to choose, another important skill to know is how to properly care for your knives. Any high quality knife that you buy should last years, but you of course have to take care of it and do the proper maintenance and upkeep in order for them to last. So today, I'm gonna tell you all of the knife do's and all of the knife don'ts. So first up, in knife do care, you should always wash your knife with warm soapy water, and usually you want the soap to be pretty mild. Once you soap it up and get all of the debris off, give it a nice rinse under warm water and immediately pat it dry with a cloth. This is gonna ensure that nothing sticks on your knife. I'm even so crazy that like right after I use my knife, I will immediately go wash it. But this ensures that it's not gonna leave anything crusted on your knife, and it's also not gonna rust with leaving water on it for long periods of time. Next up, be sure to store your knife in some kind of knife blade or guard. This is not only good for safety, but it's also going to make sure that your blade doesn't get dinged or nicked in your drawer. You may be surprised to learn that a dull knife is actually more dangerous than a sharp knife. With that being said, you want to ensure that you're sharpening your knives 1 to 3 times a year. This all just depends on how often you use your knife, and when you feel it becoming dull, that's when you know that, hey, it's probably time to go get this sharpened. In between sharpening your blade, it's also a good practice to use a honing steel. A honing steel helps straighten the knife blade and gets out any little kind of nicks that start to form. This is really easy to do, and a honing steel is a really cheap tool. I'll link my favorite one below. And I even have a video guide on how to use a honing steel. It takes a little bit of time and a little practice to feel confident with it, but it's an easy skill that you can do every day or once a week if you cook less often. Now on to our knife care don'ts. Please never do these things. When I see people do it, it literally makes my skin crawl, so just don't be one of those people. First off, never, ever put your knife in the dishwasher. This is a big no-no. It can bend the knife blade, corrode, and discolor it, and it's just altogether bad for the knife. Next up, make sure that you never leave your knife submerged in water. Not only is this a safety hazard because somebody could reach into the water and cut themselves, but it's also really bad for the knife blade. This may seem obvious, but never use the knife for their incorrect purpose, like opening cans or jars, or even cutting through frozen foods. And finally, be sure to only cut on cutting board. Never cut on things like glass or marble or surfaces that will damage your blade. Follow this knife care guide, and I promise that your knives will last years and years to come. This is especially helpful to follow if your knife has a limited lifetime warranty, because the company is of course going to ask if you're properly caring for the knife. So just make sure to follow these rules and you should be good, and your knife should last a really long time. I hope that this knife guide was helpful. Whether you're an experienced home cook or just a beginner, it should have all the things that you need to feel confident about purchasing a knife or a knife set. Like I mentioned, all of the links to my favorite knives will be below, as well as some blog posts that I wrote on my favorite chef's knife and my favorite knife set at the moment. And all of these go really in depth on even more than I talked about in the video. So if you like learning about knives, be sure to check out those blog posts. I hope that you have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in the next video.